Hello there, folks. In this video, I'm going to show you how to install and download PyCharm. What PyCharm is an IDE, which stands for Integrated Development Environment. What this lets us do is it lets us not only create Python code, which we could use in any code editor, even Notepad, but it also allows us to test it, debug it, run it, and add it to GitHub, which is super handy for all of our needs. To begin with, we want to go to the link provided under Module 1. Click on this, it'll take us to the Downloads page. And we can see here that we've got two options, or rather 9 options, no, 6 options. We've got professional and community versions for each of these, each of the operating systems we want to work with. I work with Windows, so what I want to do is I want to make absolutely sure that I download the community version. The professional version is slightly more powerful. It offers a bunch of different support for different languages, and it's got a number of other quality of life features. However, you'll notice this. It's a 30-day free trial. After that, you have to pay for a license. So we'll be using the community version. Just press the download button, download the exe, and run it. What I've got here is the installer open right now. The instructions are pretty straightforward. You want to press the next button to start, select a folder to fit it in. You'll notice that this takes almost a gigabyte of space. So to install it, it's going to take quite a bit of time and some processing power. You're just going to need to be patient as you wait for it to run through all of the processes it needs to install properly. Once we've selected the folder we want, we just need to select these options. So, just like in the previous options, in the previous installation, we want to make sure that we check each of these options. You'll notice this one lets us create a shortcut on the desktop. This one lets us run PyCharm through the command interface. This one adds an extra option whenever we right-click a file to open it up in PyCharm. And this one means that it'll automatically try to open up a PY file, the PY file we've double-clicked in PyCharm. I find this pretty useful, since chances are, whenever you open up a PY file, you're going to be running it because, well, you want to edit it. But if you are doing a lot of coding and you're trying to test out a lot of PY files, this might not be the best idea. You'll need to change your associations in your settings. You'll notice that when it's asking us to create a start menu folder, the name of the folder is JetBrains. This is because the company that creates PyCharm is JetBrains. So if you ever get confused looking for your PyCharm installation, you have to look it up for JetBrains, or J for JetBrains. Once we've selected all that, we install it and we wait. This will take a long time to install, but I've got it installed already. So let's just take a walkthrough of the features of PyCharm. When we've opened it up, you'll notice that it requires you to open up a project. So I've got a project open already, and I'm going to create a new one. Some of the options we've got here involve a bunch of different options. By default, you're only going to have access to pure Python and maybe some of the other stuff on this list. I'm currently using the professional version, so I get a few extra options. So first things first, extremely importantly, is the location. You're going to want to memorize this. This is where all of the files you write in PyCharm and in the project you're using it are going to be saved. When you run PyCharm, it creates a virtual environment. What this means is it creates an entirely new emulated computer system that is exclusively meant to be running Python in PyCharm. This is why PyCharm tends to be a little difficult for older or weaker computers to run. But in this case, you will need to run it. I'm going to change the name of my project to test project. In this, it sets a base interpreter. What this means is this is going to choose which version of Python we want to run it in. As you install more Python, special Python packages, you are going to have more options for your interpreter. But of course, you're going to want to default to the latest Python version you have, which for me is this. You don't need to create a main.py welcome script, though in the past, in this term, we have run into a lot of problems with not having it. But the main thing you need to know is that you don't necessarily need this. This is mostly just a way to set up an initial state for your project. I'm just going to press create, and we'll take a look at what we've got. So if you're opening up a new project, you can set it to into this window or in a new window. I'm going to open it in this window. Going to take a little while to create the new virtual environment and get all of the initial settings down. This will take a little while, but once it's finished, you can feel free to run it. So, key things to note here are a bunch of different buttons. You'll notice on the left is the directory for your project. This is all kept in different folders. You can see where the folders lead in the gray text to the right of the bold black text. So in this, I can see that the test project folder is kept in C, users, B page 5, documents, and then test project. And the same thing for all the others would be kept under here. These form a pretty basic folder hierarchy that you can easily follow. And if you ever want to find out where they lead, what you can do is look for the Open In folder. If you open in Explorer, that opens up the File Explorer, or your folder. This will allow you to find out where those files are being stored. Now, if we want to run a file in PyCharm, it's as simple as pressing this button. But chances are, if you're working in a new project, you will not see this option. The reason why is because PyCharm is kind of careful about allowing you to open certain files. You need to specify what file you want to open up by right-clicking it and then selecting this. This will run whatever file you are currently looking at. So I am going to create a new file here. It's giving me a list of different types of files. As a community version user without any other things installed, you are most likely just going to find Python and some of the other stuff here. None of this. So by doing this, I've created a new file. You can see it open up in the Project Explorer here. And I can add different commands to it. The world A equals 1 plus 2, print A, all this stuff. Now watch what happens when I press the play button again. You'll notice that the drop-down menu here for our current configuration still says main. And sure enough, it still says this. The reason why is because we haven't added this to our configuration just yet. We're going to need to press the Run Test button, alternatively Control-Shift F10, to open up the current file we are currently looking at. Once we do that, there we go. And there's a bunch of different ways for us to be able to use PyCharm to the fullest of its abilities. The one I really like is being able to use its version control operation. So what this lets us do is it actually lets us create a Git repository. We'll be working with GitHub elsewhere, but the key thing here is this allows us to take whatever GitHub repositories we've created or want to create and integrate them into PyCharm so that whenever we edit it, we can automatically update it. This is going to be very handy for you, your game, and your portfolio project. We're going to get into this later as we talk about GitHub, but right now, just keep in mind that this is what we can use. In addition, when we open up a new project, what we can also do is, let's see, not this option, but we will need to open up a project via VCS. We'll get into this later. Don't need to worry too much about this. One of the things we can do is we can take a look at our settings. And in our settings, we can take a number of different options to make things easier to read, change the contrast, add highlighting to our text. I really recommend that you take a look at every option available. You might find some things that are very handy for you. For example, you can change the size of the font of the menus. Now, if you want to change anything in the text editor, that is, everything here, you're going to need to go into the Settings Editor menu. You'll get a list of all the different options you can take. You can take a look at general settings. Font is the one you'll find most useful. You can change the size of your text and the height of your lines, which is to say the spacing between them, like this. And change the font to whatever you need it to be. If you have difficulties reading, like say you've got dyslexia or another issue, you can change it to whatever font you have installed that assists best with your system. For example, oh no, they don't have Comic Sans. You'll have to manually install it. Or, there we go. Perfect. Beautiful. I'm not going to use this. And just take a look at all the other ones we have available. Sometimes these are self-explanatory, sometimes you're going to need to look them up to figure out what's up. But in general, you don't need to worry too much about this. Now, by default, PyCharm saves things automatically, especially when you run them. So you don't need to worry too much about losing versions of your files. Just make sure that you don't accidentally crash. So with this is about all you really need to know about PyCharm. We can get into it further in class, and if there are any other topics that seem worthwhile, I'll make some video tutorials on them. Otherwise, good luck with the rest of your class, and I will see you guys on Tuesday.